Okay, so we're going right back to our APV question. In our previous class, we looked at the base case and PV, so I wouldn't want to repeat that. I'll get the video off for you guys. So let's now look at the financing effect, which is where I wanted us to focus on today. All right. Okay, so we mentioned in a previous class that whenever you're attempting an APV question, for the financing effect, there are going to be basically three things. Three things are going to have your financing effect part of it, which is the financing effect. You're going to have one, issue cost. Two, you're going to have your tax savings on interest payment. And three, if there is subsidized loan, you're going to have net benefits on subsidized loan. So these are the three you would have. So regardless of the details you have in there, these are the only three details you should be looking out for. I will mention that in our previous class. Now, in terms of the cost of capital to use to discount cash flow, because like we mentioned in our revision, discounting is a must. Discounting is a must. So in terms of the cost of capital to use, I can give some flexibility because that is what happens in practice. So you can, for the regular loan, which is the commercial loan, if you want to discount it, you can use the discount rate of the bank loan. Is allowed. For the subsidized loan, if you want to discount it, you can still decide to use the bank loan, or you can decide to use the risk-free rate. Whichever you use is allowed. Generally, I like to be conservative. So generally, whenever I'm doing my own calculation, I like to go for the higher of the rates. It's not a rule. If you decide to go for the risk-free rate or the lower one, it's still accurate. But I like to be conservative. So I like to go for the higher of the rates. But I will always state it clearly in my solution that this is the one I'm going for and the reason why I'm going for it. All right, so let's begin our issue cost quickly. So let's get right back to our solution with our issue cost. The company is raising finance. What will be the cost or the issue cost for those finance? So let's go back to our question and see what the issue cost would be. Okay, so we read it before in our previous class. We're not going to read everything all over again. Just going to read this part. So it says the investment cost is 120 million, which Ifedayo Plc CEO proposed to finance as follows: disposal of existing manufacturing plant, 20 million, right issue, 10 million, subsidized loan, 40 million, bank loan, 50 million. The bank loan is repayable in equal installments over 4 years. The bank loan, equal installment. Over 4 years. The subsidized loan, it is silent on the repayment. So whether it is on equal installment or not, it doesn't tell us. It just tells us what the interest rate is. But the bank loan, it tells us equal installment over 4 years. So I'm going to come back to what that means. It then states that issue cost of 2% are payable on gross external financing and are not allowed for corporate tax. Issue costs are payable out of available cash reserve. So in other words, it has the fund, the cash reserve to pay for the issue cost. So it doesn't need to increase the value. The finance director has asked you to ignore underwriting costs relating to the issue cost. All right. So issue cost is 2% on gross external finance. When we say external finance, we mean the company raising money from external sources. So what are these external sources? One, disposal of manufacturing plant is not raising finance from external sources. The company is just selling what it has. It's not raising finance through equity, through debt, and all of that. So that is out of it. Right issue. Yes, the company is issuing equity to existing shareholders. So it's an external finance, 10 million. Subsidized loan, yes, 40 million. Bank loan, yes, 50 million. So the total cost the company would issue from external sources would be 50 plus 40 plus 10, which is total of 100. So let's just get that started out. So total issue cost. So total external financing, rather. Let's start with that. Total external financing. So total external financing. So we have the right issue at 10. We have the subsidized loan at 40. We have the bank loan at 50, total of 100. Our issue cost is 2%. Times 100, which is equals to 2 million. The question says that issue cost, what does it say here? Yeah, the question says that issue costs are not allowable for corporate tax. Issue costs or external financing are not allowable for corporate tax. So there's no tax benefit from the issue cost. So our 2 million is what we're going to pay. There's no extra tax benefit from that. So our issue cost is 2 million. But right before I proceed to the next question, so the next part, which are tax savings on interest payment. Now, I'm going to allow you guys to play around it together. We're going to look at it together. Assuming the question said that the bank loan is allowable for tax purpose. Let's add that bit. It's not part of our solution. We're just trying to add that bit a little bit. So assuming the question says that the bank loan is allowable for tax purpose. Guys, how do you think we'll treat that? I'm just adding that bit. So currently it's not allowable, so we just do our issue cost. But as it said, the bank loan is tax allowable. How would you treat that? We solve the questions on APV, and we'll be able to have a few minutes to say a few things on that. Who wants to help us out? Okay, so let's go back right into our question. So if it is tax allowable, all we need to do is to account for the tax benefit. And how do we do that? All we need to do is to say the issue cost for whatever that funding source is. So if it's bank loan, the issue cost for bank loan multiplied by the tax rate. So if the question had told us that the bank loan alone is allowed for tax purposes, what that would basically mean is that we would bring in that benefit after we've calculated the issue cost. So we then bring in the benefit. So that would be that would have somewhere here tax benefit on bank loan. Okay, our issue cost is negative because that's what we're paying. So that would be the issue cost for bank loan, which would be 2% multiplied by the bank loan of 50 million multiplied by the tax rate. And our tax rate in our question is 20%. So that would be 2% multiplied by 50 million multiplied by 0.2 gives us 0.2. So our net issue cost will be 1.8 negative. So please always look out for whether or not the issue cost has some tax benefit. If it doesn't have any tax benefit, we just do our calculation and move on. But if it has some tax benefit, then we need to account for the tax benefit. Okay, so you might want to, if it's not a concept you understand, you might want to do a screenshot of this part because I want to delete it. This is not important for our solution. Our issue cost, there's no tax benefit, so we're stopping at 2 million. But I needed to explain that concept just in case you have a different part in the question. Any question on issue cost? All right. So please do a screenshot if you need to do on that part. I'm going to just wipe off that part because it is not part of our question. Issue cost is not tax allowable. So I'm just going to wipe out that part. So this is not part of our solution. Okay, so I'm just going to wipe out this. Just use that to illustrate to you guys how to treat that scenario. Because what ICAN would often do in exams is that they'll pick. So generally, there's really no new question out there. So ICAN would just pick a question, change the name, change the figures, and then add or change one or two things. So if they tested the situation where issue cost is not allowable in the next diet, or if they choose to test that question the next time, they will test the scenario where it is allowable. So and that's why I needed to explain that. All right, guys, so that's our issue cost. Now let's move on to the tax savings on interest payment. Tax savings on interest payment. Now our tax savings on interest payment, which is our second part of our subsidized loan part. Tax savings on interest payment. So this would be our interest amount multiplied by the tax rate. Multiplied by the tax rate. Please take note of that. The interest amount multiplied by the tax rate. So that will be our tax payment on interest payment on the loan. We have two types of loan here. We have the subsidized loan and we have the bank loan. So let's do the tax savings on interest payment for the subsidized loan. And then we'll do the same for the bank loan. So let's begin with the tax payment on interest, tax savings on interest payment for the subsidized loan. So let's begin with that first one. Subsidized loan. We say we need to know the interest amount. We then multiply it by the tax rate. So what is the interest amount? we are borrowing 40 million under subsidized loan. What is the interest payment per year so that we can know how much we are paying as interest every year on subsidized loan? So let's go right back to our question and see what the interest rate is on the subsidized loan. All right, so this is a subsidized loan. Subsidized loan, 3.5% annual interest rate. So the interest rate is 3.5%. We're borrowing 40 million. So what does that equate to? So 40 million multiplied by 3.5%, our interest amount. Okay, so what does that give us? So 40 million multiplied by 3.5 divided by 100, which is 1 million, 1.4, which is 1,400,000. I can just put 1.4 million, whatever we choose to do. So that is our interest amount every year. Our tax savings is our interest amount multiplied by the tax rate. So let's multiply by the tax rate. Okay, well, the tax rate, I think it's 20%, but let's quickly reconfirm that. Well, the tax rate in our question. Yeah, corporate tax is payable annually at the rate of 20%. So multiply that by 20%. All right, so what is our tax savings on subsidized loan, our annual tax savings? And subsidized loan. Right, so that's 1.4 multiplied by 0.2, which is 280K. 280,000 per year. Right, so that's our tax savings on subsidized loan, 280,000 per year. If this loan is just for 1 year, we are fine. But if the loan is more than 1 year, therefore means that we need to extend this over the tenure of the loan, making use of the concept of annuity. So let's go down there quickly. So what's the tenure of the loan? Okay, so our loans are generally 4 years. Our projects for 4 years. So our loans for 4 years. So we need to extend that over the 4 years period for 4 years. So we need to get the annuity factor for 4 years because our loan and our investments for a period of 4 years. So annuity factor for 4 years, which is the tenure of the loan. So what rate do we use? Now we mentioned that you have 2 options. You can use the bank loan, which is what we have for the tax savings with commercial loan. For subsidized loan, you can use the bank loan or the risk-free rate. So you can decide to use here bank loan, here risk-free rate, or you can use bank loan. Oftentimes I tend to use the same so that it reduces my calculation of annuity factor. So if I use a risk-free rate here, is allowed, and I use bank loan here, it means that I have to calculate the annuity factor of diff here and also calculate the annuity factor here. But if I use this and this as the same thing, it means that I don't have to calculate it twice. So when I calculate this, I can also use it for the commercial bank loan. So it's up to you guys. So, but let me do the two. Let me make use of the bank loans. So when you actual exam, you can use whichever one you're comfortable. So we're looking to look at the interest rate of the bank loan, which is the commercial bank loan. So what's the interest rate for the commercial bank loan? The bank loan has a 9% interest rate. So I'm going to use that for both the bank and the subsidized loan instead of using the risk-free rate. So that's 4 years, 9%. So what's the annuity factor? Don't forget our formula for annuity factor, 1 minus 1 plus whatever the rate of return is the power of number of years divided by the rate of return. So that would be 1 minus 1 plus. We went for 9%, so that's 0.09 raised to the power of minus 4 divided by 0.09. Okay. So just a minute. So 1.09 is power of minus 4 minus 1 divided by 0.04. So by my calculator, I have 3. Oh, sorry. I need to clean that and write that clearly. Right. So I have 3.240. Okay, so what do we have the value for 4 years? The value for 4 years. 280,000 multiplied by 3.240, 907,200. So we have 907,200. 907,200. Any question on the issue cost on the subsidized loan, guys? Okay. Any question? This is why we're here. APV is an area that I really want you guys to know because it has very high chances of being tested. Okay, great. Now there's something I want you guys to note with regards to interest payment. And that's what I highlighted at the very start. Okay, so I'm going right back to the question to point you guys out to that fact in the question. All right, so we have two loans here. We have the subsidized loan and we have the bank loan. The bank loan, the question tells us that the bank loan is payable in equal annual installment. So what that means is that we need to begin by establishing what that annual installment is. So what is that equal annual installment? Because that equal annual installment will be made up of both the principal and the interest. Our subsidized loan, the question doesn't tell us. It's silent on the repayment plan for that. So because it's silent on the repayment plan for that, we just generally assume, because it is silent, we generally assume that the annual interest payment will just be the loan amount multiplied by the interest rate. So the interest amount will just be the loan amount multiplied by the interest rate, because the question is silent on the repayment. But for the bank loan, it's very specific. There's going to be an equal annual repayment. So the first question we need to ask ourselves would be, what is that annual repayment? So what is that annual repayment? So let's go to our B part, which is tax savings on bank loan. Okay, so the first thing we need to establish is what is the annual repayment, because it says that there are annual equal repayment. So our annual equal repayment would be equals to the loan amount divided by the annuity factor. Okay, so what is our loan amount for the bank loan? For the bank loan, how much are we collecting from the bank? We're collecting, or we're borrowing 50 million. That's what we're borrowing from the bank, 50 million. So we divide that by the annuity factor. So because we use the bank rate for the subsidized loan, we don't have to calculate the annuity factor again. And that's the advantage of using just one rate, as against when you're using different rates for different ones. So the loan amount is 50 million. The annuity factor, which we calculated before, is 3.240. Okay, so how much is that every year? So 50 million divided by 3.243, which is 15 million. 15,432,099. So this is the annual equal repayment of the principal plus interest. So let's do our loan schedule so that we can then have the interest payment part of it quickly. Let's do our loan schedule so we can have the interest. Okay, so we have year 1, we have year 2, we have year 3, we have year 4. So opening, we borrowed 50 million. So we borrowed 50 million. We're going to pay interest. What is the interest rate on the bank loan? Bank loan, what's the interest rate on the bank loan? 9% annual interest rate. That's a bank loan. 9% annual interest rate. That's a bank loan. So what's our 9% of 50 million? Okay, so that's our 9%. Okay, so what's our 9% of 50 million? So 50 million multiplied by 9%, 4.5 million is what we are due to pay as interest. And then at the end of the year, we have our annual repayment, equal repayment that we calculated above. At the end of the year, we have our annual repayment that we calculated above of 15,432,099. 15,432,099. So what's our closing balance? So let's do the loan schedule first before we come and do the tax savings. Okay, so I have 50 million plus 4.5 million minus our annual equal repayment of 15,432,099. So that gives us a closing balance of 39,067,901. So our closing balance becomes our opening balance for year 2, 39,067,901. Our interest is 9%. So that amount multiplied by 9%. It gives us 3,516,111. Our annual repayment remains 15,432,099. Okay, so that's our closing balance. 39,067,901 plus 3,516 111 minus 15,432,099. So that's 27 151,913. Our closing balance becomes our opening balance here, 27,151,913. Our interest rate remains 9%, so multiplied by 0.09. So that's 2443672. Our annual repayment 15,432,099. What do we have as a closing balance? 27,151,913 plus 2443672 minus 15,432,099 gives us 14,163,486. Closing balance becomes our opening balance. 14,163,486. Okay, our interest rate for that year, 14,163,486 multiplied by 9%, 1,274. 1,274, 713. Okay, now in our final year, because it's our final year of loan repayment, we can't carry forward any further balance. Because if we carry forward any balance, who is going to pay that one? We're trying to wind down. So in our final year, normally what you have here should be 15,432,099. But because of the impact of rounding up, it might be a little bit different. So what we would basically just do in our final year would just be to find the balance. So what do we need to pay to close out? So it might not be 15,432,099 on the dot. The reason is because if we put 15,432,099, we might have a closing balance to carry forward to the year 5, but we're not carrying forward anything because we're winding down in year 4. So we just find that net value for our final year. So that would be 14. Oh, sorry. That would be 14,163,486 plus 1,274,713. So I have 15. 438, the 3 impact of rounding up, 199 as our final year's balance. Any question on the loan schedule, guys? And a quick question. Why we're thinking of a question on the loan schedule? Just a quick recap. Maybe someone will help us just recap it so that I don't have to say it myself again. So we have 2 loans. In one of the loan, we did a loan schedule. In the first one, we didn't do a loan schedule. We just multiplied the loan amount by the interest rate. So I've mentioned it before, but just a quick recap. Under what circumstance do we prepare the loan schedule? Another one circumstance do we just multiply the loan amount by the interest rate? I've mentioned it before. We would like to just a quick recap. Very important that we know that concept so we don't get our calculations wrong in exams. We would like to give that a try. Okay, so let me take that again quickly. So where the question mentions that there is equal annual repayment. So because there's an equal annual repayment, the expectation is that that equal annual repayment is a combination of the principal and the interest. So we need to begin by determining what is that annual equal repayment. Then based on that, we can then build a loan schedule. However, where for that particular loan or borrowing, the question is silent on the repayment, all we need to do, just multiply the loan amount by the interest rate, because we're assuming that it's on a straight line interest payment. It's an assumption we make, it's on a straight line interest payment. So please pay attention to that whenever you're doing your tax savings on interest payment. So now that we've calculated our interest, now let's do our tax savings now. Our formula does not change. We only have to do we only have to do the loan schedule so that we can know what our interest would be. Our formula remains interest amount multiplied by the tax rate. That's what our formula is. It doesn't change. We only have to do the loan schedule in this situation so that we can know what our interest amount is. This is our interest amount. So let me just copy that down quickly. Our interest amount multiplied by our tax rate, which is 20%. So our interest amount here is 4.5. Our tax rate is 20%. So what do we have? Our interest amount is 3516111. Our tax rate is 20%. What do we have? 2443672. 20%. 1274713. 20%. Okay. All right, guys. So what do we have quickly? So we have 4.5 multiplied by 0.2. 900,000. The next one. 3516111 multiplied by 0.2. 703,222.2. The next one, 2443672 multiplied by 0.2. 488,734. I'm taking out the decimal points. I don't want to work with that. 1,274,713 multiplied by 0.2. 254,943. All right. It is our tax savings. SFM is never complete unless we discount. So guys, let's discount. Our rate, we're using 9%. So what's the discount rate for 9% for year one? So we're going to use the formula 1 plus R raised to the power of minus n. Or if you prefer to, you can use 1 divided by 1 plus R raised to the power of n, whichever one you're comfortable with. So what do we have? So it's just a minute. Let me make use of scientific calculator. I was using a regular calculator before now. Okay, so 9% discount factor. So 1.09 raised to the power of minus 1. So that's 0.917. 1.09 raised to the power of minus 2. 0.842. 1.09 raised to the power of minus 3. 0.772. 1.09 raised to the power of minus 4. 0.708. Okay. So let's multiply and get what our values are. 900,000 multiplied by 0.917, 825,300. 703,222. I don't want to put the 0.2 multiplied by 0.842. 592,113. I don't want to make use of the point so that it's easier to manage my values. 488,734 multiplied by 0.772. The value is 377,303. Then finally, 254,943 multiplied by 0.708. Value is 180,500. All right, so let's add it up and know what our total tax savings is. What is the total for the bank loan? 825,300 plus 825,300 plus 592,113 plus 377,303 plus 180,500. That gives us a total of 1,975,216. Guys, any question on the tax savings on the bank loan? Please feel free to ask if you have any questions. Okay, so we've done our tax. We've done the 2 out of 3 parts. We've done our issue cost, which was the first one we did. We've done the tax savings on interest payment. So we've split it into 2 because there are 2 types of interest or loan payment. We've done the calculation for the commercial loan, which is the one we just finished, or the bank loan, rather. Let me use the exact term they use in the question. So we've done the calculation for, first we did for the subsidized loan, and then we did for the bank loan. So that's what we've just done, the P part now. So we did for our subsidized loan first, pretty straightforward. The loan amount multiplied by the interest payment, because it doesn't tell us, give us details on the repayment. So we didn't have to do the loan schedule. And then for the bank loan, it tells us that there's an annual repayment of interest and principal. So we've done that as well for the bank loan, and that's the value we've got. Let's move on to do our last part, which is the last part of the question, which is the net benefit on subsidized loan. Now, when the company gets subsidized loan, or is able to borrow at a subsidized rate, now 2 things are going to happen, or the results from that opportunity. One is, because the company is getting finance on a subsidized loan, it will pay reduced interest. So let's say, for example, that the bank loan is, say, 10%, but it's able to get subsidized loan at 7%. So it's paying a lower interest of 7% as against 9%. So that's against 10%, which my illustration, it's a difference of 3%. So it's paying 3% lower in that scenario. Say commercial loan is 10%, but subsidized loan is 7%. It's paying 3% lower by going for the subsidized loan at 7%. as against the commercial loan of 10%. Just using that for illustration purpose. So it enjoys that reduced interest payment. So it enjoys that reduced interest payment. So the first thing we need to determine on subsidized loan element would be, what is the reduced interest payment that this organization is enjoying? Now, second thing happens, because it is enjoying a reduced interest payment, it will lose the tax savings on interest payment. Lost tax savings on interest payment. So let me explain that. So assuming that, for example, the company had gone for subsidized loan, let's say bank loan, the company had gone for the bank loan. And if it had gone for bank loan, the total interest the company would pay would be 10 million interest. Now this 10 million interest will be tax allowable. So the company will enjoy tax savings. But the company did not go for bank loan. So this is the bank loan. The company decided to go for subsidized loan. And when you go for subsidized loan, it pays interest of 7 million. So there's a benefit here, then, which is this part, reduced interest payment of 3 million. However, because it is now paying 7 million for commercial loan, as against 10 million it would have paid if it had gone for the bank loan, the company would lose the tax savings on the benefit saved. On the benefit saved. So whenever we are calculating a net benefit on subsidized loan, we're going to do two things. One, we're going to determine what value did the company gain from the subsidized loan. That's the first thing we determine. What value did the company gain from the subsidized loan? It paid 7 million against 10 million, so it gained 3 million. In our this is our simplified example. It gained 3 million. Straightforward. We then look at it and say, because it paid 7 million against 10 million, what is the tax savings that the company has lost from paying a reduced interest? So maybe I should rephrase a little bit. What is the tax savings lost from paying a reduced interest? Tax savings lost from paying a reduced interest. And we then find the net. Okay, I think I had a hand up. Let me see if that hand is still up. Okay, the hand is down. Okay, so let's do this two quickly. The first thing is, what is the net benefit from the reduced interest payments? So let's do that part quickly. So net benefit from reduced interest payment. Net benefit from reduced interest. Okay. If the company had gone for the bank loan, what would be the interest rate that they would have paid? What would have been the interest rate? They would have paid an interest of 9%. But because they're going for subsidized loan, they are paying 3.5%. So how much are they saving? Or how much are they saving from that decision? So 9 minus 3.5. If they had gone for commercial loan, the interest would have been 9%. But now they are going for subsidized loan, they are paying 3.5%. So how much are they saving? They are borrowing 40 million. So how much are they saving on the 40 million? So that is 9% minus 3.5. How much are they saving? So that's 9 minus 3.5. So they are saving 5.5%. So 5.5 divided by 100 multiplied by 40. So that's 2.2 million. Any question on that benefit? All right, now we know how much they're getting from the subsidized loan. However, because they've gotten a subsidized loan, they're going to lose the tax savings on that amount. So lost tax savings. And the lost tax savings is basically the amount gained multiplied by the tax rate. Okay, so the amount gained is 2.2 multiplied by the tax rate of 20%. So what do we have? 2.2 multiplied by 20%, 440,000. Okay, so what's the benefit per year? Okay, so the benefit per year, that's 2.2 multiplied minus the 400,000. 1760. All right, so this is per year. Our project is for 4 years. So always bear in mind, so we need, because it's for 4 years and that's per year, we need to bring in the annuity factor. So we already calculated it before, so we don't need to calculate it again. So what was the annuity factor that we used before? 3.240. 3.240. Okay, so what is our final value for 4 years? All right, so what do we have? So 1760 multiplied by 3.240. Now the total of 5,702,400. 5,702,400. Any question, guys? Any question, guys? Please, APV is important. Might be a question one, you never can say. It's important that we get the concept. Okay, so that's all. We just summarize then. Let's summarize then. Let's put everything together. Okay, someone's hand is up. Okay, let me, is it hands up or it's someone that's about joining? Let me be very sure of that. Okay, Mr. Babatunde, your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening. Well done, bro.
I want to ask how we derive the annuity factor, the figure that we use for that annuity.
Okay. I'll just go back to that now. Okay. So
thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. You're welcome. So I did mention that when it comes to the discount rate, you have a choice. You can use the bank loan for the commercial loan. Then you can use the bank loan or risk-free rate for the subsidized loan. But I like using the same value, which will be the higher of the two, because if I calculate it once, I don't have to calculate it. I don't have to calculate it here. If I use risk-free rate here, and I use bank loan here, it means that I have to do this calculation separately, and I do this one separately. So I tend to do the two together. So I went with the bank loan, and the bank loan is 9% for our question. The bank loan is 9% from our question. So that's what we have here. Bank loan is 9%. So I went with that. I went for the higher of all of the rates. So the bank loan is 9%. Now that we established that, I can then calculate my annuity factor. And annuity factor has the formula. And this is the formula, sir. 1 minus 1 plus the rate of return raised to power of minus n divided by r. So that is 1 minus 1 plus, went for 9%, which is the bank loan interest rate, so 0.09, raised to power of minus n, which is the number of years. Our project is for 4 years, so that's minus 4 divided by r, 0.09. That's what gave us 3.240. Is that fine, sir? Yeah,
yes,
you're welcome. Yeah. So because we're using the same rate, we're using that rate for all of our calculation, we just stick to it because that's what we decided to use for everything. Okay, so let's summarize. Let's summarize quickly. Then we'll take any further questions on APV. Okay, so I think I have another hand up. Just a minute. Okay, please go ahead. I can't see the name, it's not flagging. Okay, Ola, please go ahead. Go ahead, Ola.
Okay, sorry, sir. Sorry to take you back. Please,
No problem at all. Yeah.
are we using unstable network? Please, how did you get that repayment amount, that loan repayment amount, sir?
Okay, for the bank loan, right?
Yes, the loan schedule, yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the formula. The loan amount, which is whatever the loan amount is for that particular loan, divided by the annuity factor. So for the bank loan, we collected 50 million. The annuity factor remains 3.240, and that's what gives us this. Yeah, so this amount is principal and interest. So this amount is both principal and interest. And so because it's both principal and interest, we need to then put together a loan schedule to help us extract the interest element.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. This is the formula, sir. All right, sir. Thank you.
It's fine. Don't forget, we discussed when to use it. So if the question is silent on the repayment, just do amount multiplied by the interest rate. But when the question is specific and said that it's an annual repayment or equal repayment of principal and interest, just know that you need to determine what that equal amount would be, and then you build a loan schedule from it. Okay, so let's go right back into our base case NPV. Sorry, our APV now. Let's summarize our APV quickly. Okay, so let's summarize our APV. All right, so from our previous class, we calculated our base case NPV. I don't have that right here. So as 4.6, you have that in our previous class. We then have our financing effect now. So let me get another stuff here. So our financing effect. Okay, so we have our issue cost. How much are we spending for issue cost? That was the first calculation we did. 2 million our issue cost. So our issue cost is 2 million. We then have our tax savings on subsidized loan. Oh, sorry, I wanted to put these ones, all of these ones under here, so that I calculate the financial effects if I move them to the next line. So let me know what the total financing effect is. So let me put it 2 million here. Okay, our tax savings on subsidized loan. So what do we have? A subsidized loan, 907,220. So just copy that down. Sorry, I'm not forgetting what I just saw now. Okay. 907 200. Yeah, 907 200. So it's a tax savings. So it's a positive value that we have there. It's a tax savings. The next one is our tax savings on bank loan. So what do we have as our tax savings on bank loan? It's on the bank loan. Total is 1975216. 1975216. 1975216. And then we then have our net benefit on subsidized loan. Okay, a net benefit on subsidized loan, 5702400. So that's 5702400. Okay. All right. So what do we have on that on our financing effect? 5702400. I'm adding from the last one plus 1975216 plus 907,200 minus 2 million. So this is 6,584,816 minus 4.5. 4.6 rather, minus 4.6 rather. So that is 1984816 as our adjusted present value. So we can then quickly recommend it's a positive, and if it is a positive APV, and we should proceed. The project has a positive APV of 1.98 million, and as such should be undertaken. All right, guys. So that's APV.